presenter is Professor David Lovekin, longtime member, collaborator with the International Jacques Ellul Society, emeritus professor of philosophy at Hastings College, author of one of the best books ever written on Jacques Ellul's philosophy and sociology and everything else, Technique, Discourse, and Consciousness, an Introduction to the Philosophy of Jacques Ellul, which is an excellent book, highly recommended. He's also a co-translator with Professor Yunus of Ellul's book on art, Empire of Nonsense, which is highly recommended. Dr. David Lovekin.
Thanks a lot, Samir. It's always good to be visited by ideas. The true is the made and the not made. This is a play on Vico's notion that the true is the made, but we get to that at the end. Jacques Ellul's La technique ou l'enjeu du siècle in 1954 is an analysis of technology, as a form of mentality and sociality that began to clearly emerge around 1750 in the Western world. Historians like Kranzberg and Purcell discuss the material developments of technology in a list of objects and processes as if they were morally and intellectually neutral. Just stuff. Typically, technology suggested science, organization, order, and progress. By contrast, Ellul presents an historical and anthropological account of the development of technique from know-how and technical operations present in all cultures to the technical phenomena of technical culture or technological culture and the presence of a new mentality. My guess is that what Mitchum was really talking about with engineering was simply know-how. I'm not sure what else it would be. As translator John Wilkinson points out, Ellul's work is dramatic and dialectical in the spirit of Hegel's phenomenology of mind. This mentality is in the administrator's smile and limp handshake that prepares office personnel for staff cuts with the precise objectivity of artificial intelligence and algorithmic acrobatics. Conflicts and confrontations play out with the encouragings of this mentality, a type of being in the world, as it transforms in attempts to perfect the natural and social worlds in mathematical and logical terms. In this paper, I consider the intention of technological making. An intention is being before an object from a specific perspective. Ellul is clear that all cultures have techniques understood as technical operations, things that are done, like typing on a keyboard, chipping an arrowhead, dressing a deer, and brushing one's teeth. These operations and intentions extend from workers and their cultural perspectives. Typically, the body is extended in tool use. The technical phenomenon marks a new intention. Traditions, aesthetics, and moral tendencies, pragmatic concerns are transformed with the appearance of rational judgment in the quest for absolute efficiency to rid the contradictions rife in the eyes of science and mathematics. I'm going to claim that technical rationality is not the fuzzy thing that Mitchum says it was. It's really quite precise. Nature and traditions are no longer imitated. The human does not fly by flapping arms and imitating birds, but by applying Bernoulli's law explaining air pressure. Any operation can appear before technical consciousness and judgment to perfect and to conceptualize. There can be a technique of brushing one's teeth, of swimming, of all measure of exercise, which was understood well by the Nazis who organized youth camps or by concerned parents. The introduction of technical intention to reduce all methods to a mathematics-like methodology with efficiency as an absolute is new. Making with traditional knowledge and individual artistry with perishable material in a specific time and place isn't visited by scientific perfection and exactitude. This making is finite from material that is other to the maker. Homes are built, food is eaten, marriages are made, births are welcomed, burials are performed. These makings require meaning, communication, rituals, and deeds made from what has not hitherto before been made. Tools, language, and symbols will be needed. Being is beset by the othernesses of nature and society. In this sense, I am what I am not. I will entertain Ellul's discussion of the dialectical relation between technical operations and phenomena as they occur within historical and cultural settings where reason usurps cultural symbolic embodiments in the philosophy of René Descartes. I will also encourage Jean-Baptiste Vica's critique of Cartesianism as it produces reflective cultural barbarism with the decay of memory and imagination. And all will be done in the Hegelian spirit. How to be as a being that is and is not a technical phenomenon. That which is and that which is not is the question. Ellul states primitive technique begins in absolute mystery. Each primitive operation implies the bridging of an enormous gulf between instinct and the technical act, quoting Ellul, such that a mystical aura hovers about all subsequent development. Invention mysteriously confronts what it does not know in a making that unfolds along material and spiritual paths. Magical ritual may accompany and supplement tool use in a world where all is of a piece, with each part deserving care and respect. These techniques aim at the infinite and typically die with the cultures in which they were born. Material techniques may develop but remain specific to practices and traditions. They point to a world of things, images, and present tasks which spiritual techniques express symbols, words, and rituals that open to dimensions that surround. These two separate paths remain separate, but not perfectly so. Subjectivity and objectivity are at one in a cosmic vestment, able to manipulate surroundings to an advantage where adversaries become allies. This is in the world of magic, of course. Sometimes rain does not follow the ritual dance, although the ritual is not blamed. Magic and nature are unified in opposition. By contrast, the efficient magic of La Technique succeeds in denial and co-option of forgetting origins and opposition in what he calls lethal technique, the forgetting of technique. Irrational, spontaneous, threatening, unpredictable nature is rationalized as a technical phenomenon, a new nature. The rain dance becomes a dam or techniques of irrigation that strain aquifers. Technique is the made out of the not made, the natural. Technical subjectivity becomes objectivity in the new sacred, disconnected from the natural that is sublated in denial. Technique in its opposition to the sacred and to what is not becomes what is not, a contradiction. I recall asking a waitress if the whipped cream was real, if it came from cows. She said she didn't know, but that it tasted real good. The history of technique is the history of opposition, as Ellul explains. The absolutes of Greek rationality, of Roman law and order, and of medieval god worship stood in technique's way. From the 16th century on, material techniques gather around the printing press, the nautical compass, and gunpowder, with yet no clear technical intention. However, by the 18th century, the principles established by Descartes were applied and resulted not only in a philosophy, but in an intellectual technique. This is, of course, the technological society. Descartes, the founder of analytical geometry, wanted knowledge to speak in mathematical and logical terms. He wanted ideas that could not be denied without contradiction for the basis of this reasoning. Very clear sense of reasoning and rationality. He created three such ideas: the thinking self, or he calls it the cogito, the body, and God. Je pense donc je suis, he declares in the Meditation. While thinking, he could not deny he was thinking. While thinking, he had to be someplace, the body, and had to believe that there are truths to know, like the above, that is, a graceful and good God who would not permit error if free of contradiction. These notions grounded the technical intention. This is what is the basis of the technical intention, as Ellul wants to suggest. The self is reduced to thinking. Passion, memory, and imagination are left out. The body is extension with no specific size, weight, or propensity. And God was the being whose existence was essence as omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. The self, the extended body, and God are the mathematician's absolutes. They were made alone in an apartment in a city. Ellul's technical intention. This non-argument, it's not an argument at all. Je pense donc je suis is simply I think, therefore I'm thinking. It's absolutely no argument at all. But then again, what would be an argument? Well, the law of principles of identity and contradiction. These, of course, are never proven. They make proof possible, but they're not proven. No way you could prove these things. They're the basis of proof. That's what technique is always interested in, proving, but not interested in the basis of proof or how proof occurs, and therefore how it doesn't occur. Anyway, this non-argument for Descartes is an intuition to counter an evil genius, an all-deceiving force. Descartes invokes the laws of thought, of identity and non-contradiction. That cannot be proven. We just talked about that. Descartes concludes that he is in essence a thinking being with innate ideas of God and of an extended body. These ideas are clear and distinct, cannot be denied without contradiction. Ellul notes that reason's reflections are always nearby but not unwelcome until they are sacralized with the schemas of logic and the technical phenomena. For Ellul, God is not available to logic and can only be known through the Word as being both infinite and finite. The body resists logical declension as well, as the history of the technical phenomenon shows. With the body, we both are and are not, a duality seeking unity. Spiritual technique begins in mystery, with a naming of otherness. Ellul noted in l'Histoire des Institutions that Rome was built upon, quote, a sacred ground, unquote. The Roman sacred, he writes, is at the same time both religious and magical. It is religious in that it worships the transcendental powers, and it is magical in that it utilizes these powers which are immanent. Rome, end of quote. Rome was symbolically established through stories, myths, and words that are not true because they are factual, but are true because they found the fact in meaningful opposition. They make the fact possible. Jupiter was the god of light and the god of trees, as well as the god of Roman law. Mars was the god of Roman strife, who established the military. Quirinus was the god of fecundity, the god of earth, water, and plants, who established agriculture. These gods have double and triple significance and situate and justify Roman situation and civilization. Symbols, which are very important for Ellul, make culture possible, in fact, are both transcendent and immanent, unlike images that do not contradict. The technical society loves images, truths that can't be denied without Cartesian contradiction. That's exactly what's behind it. The technical rationality is not fuzzy, far from it. We know exactly what it means when we think about it. Words entertain multiple meanings. The oral word, arguably where myths begin, is the paradigmatic symbol. It is a puff of wind, material and spiritual at once, coming from an individual to someone about something. Mind, body, object, and world are one in opposition and difference. Unified and different at the same time. Completely Hegelian. Technique buries words alive in images out of metaphors like cliché. Cliché originally was a word that enabled the printing press process as pieces of lead to be struck. Also suggests the sound that was made, cliquet. The original word for cliché was a metaphor that appears in English around 1852. The word, in its contrary sense, is the metaphor that originally meant to throw against. Words are thrown against images to situate meanings and symbols that refer. Technique fights the word that makes it possible. The word inhabits the domain of the true and the metaphor. The image decorates the dimension of the reality of sight and logic and identities without difference. The image provides the furniture of reality. It is the making, it is the machine in its new suit. The image is the word and the machine in its new suit. Many studies of technology amount to moving furniture, but not building a home. Ellul's characteristic of the technical phenomena are as follows. Here they are. Rationality, number one, rationality, artificiality, automatism, self-augmentation, monism, universalism, autonomy. Rationality is the foundation. All flow from it. I'm going to quote from the Technological Society was Wilkinson's translation, but I found that he left out a sentence and a half or so I've added it. I'll tell you where it comes. It's fairly important, actually. But again, translation's absolutely astonishing, so no criticism. We all have to worry and realize that life is leaving things out and a challenge for others to find them and help us. We're nothing without that. This, quote, Rationality, best exemplified in norms and the like, involves two distinct phases. First, the use of discourse in every operation under the two aspects, this is what's left out, under the two aspects this term can take. On the one hand, the intervention of intentional reflection, and on the other hand, the intervention of means from one term to the other. And then that's what he left out. This excludes spontaneity, personal creativity. Second, there is the reduction of method to its logical dimension alone. Every intervention of technique is in effect a reduction of facts, forces, phenomena, means, and instruments to the schema of logic. The word here, by the way, discourse, it's surely is a reference to Descartes. But also, Ellul talks about discourse in the humiliation of the word, in which he is suggesting that words are reduced to images. So there's something significant there. Every technical operation to which we applied a word or notion refers to a reflection or to our awareness of it, and then to our transformation of it into schemas of logic. The objectified intention is artificial by definition and not by the inventions or imitations of non-mathematical forces. Otherness is denied. Decisions that embody this rationality are made automatically. This is, again, this playing out of the technical intention. More is better than less. This applies to butter, poison, and pollution. Technical phenomena proliferate geometrically rather than arithmetically. As Wolfgang Schivelbusch points out, the 19th century train travel produced the paperback, impressionist painting, and life insurance, independent of any choice or need, but from technical necessity. Technical development proceeds regardless of moral, political, or economic question, or in fact any question. That which can be done will be done. Weapons made are used. Technique knows something or other.
No geographical or political boundaries.
I'm sorry?
Technique knows no geographical.
Yeah, our political boundaries as technology becomes more systematic and global of necessity. Outside of technique, choice is gone. The internet, social media, computers, and artificial intelligence presides. At that point, technology is the sacred. Subjectivity and objectivity are identical, as in magic. Technique now is Hegel's never-ending bad infinity. Like Ellul, 18th century philosopher Jean-Baptiste Vico lamented the triumph of Cartesianism, of logic over words that eschewed traditional wisdom based in rhetoric and classical literature. Vico stated, "The true is the made." Knowledge that came to him, this knowledge came to him in the study of ancient language. He didn't make it up. He discovered it. Verum and factum were convertible. Verum esse ipsum factum, the true is the made, applies to God's making, that is the result of his knowing. The mind, he says, Vico, can best know what it has made. Vico assumes, therefore, that only God can know the natural world that natural science professes to know, since God made the world. The human can know what it has made in language and stories that produce civil institutions. Vico tells the story of the first humans. They were giganti. They were so big they were all body. They could only think bodily. Who fear and worship the thundering sky. The noble poets among the giganti stand before this holy other, shake and shout, Pape. Word and image came together in what Vico called an imaginative universal. This making occurs or occurred in the presence of what was not known. This is not Cartesian thinking. The clear and distinct doesn't produce the metaphor, not in any way. The first metaphor is made in ignorance by taking in the images and transforming them in wisdom that is self-extension. But what the humans best know, the embodied nine, this is not the clear and distinct. Vico understood that each society had its eternal history, being found in their literatures, in an age of gods, of heroes, of men. Each age had its defining trope. Metaphor for the gods, metonym for heroes, synecdoche for men, and irony for the decadence that follows the age of men. The metaphor is a unifying power, Vico says, loses its strength as words separate from objects and finally become loose in irony, where, describes our culture beautifully, people grow mad and waste their substance in luxury and decadence. The metaphor is made by the imagination that takes in, I'm going to quit. Anyway, right. Vico says there are two kinds of barbarism. The barbarism of sensation, the giants that could only stand and shake, and the barbarism of reflection, in which people would take then what they have made and presume that that has not been made, but that is what God has made, i.e. the natural, of which they no longer have any sense. And I just made that. I discovered that. I didn't make it. Anyway, je pense faucheusly. Ça suffit.